guys. Today we're going to have a little bit of a sit down chat because there is something on social media that I have seen pop off all over with all my fellow small business owners, and that is the removal of the de minimis $800 duty-free tariff charge to the US, which has really affected a lot of small business owners. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what it is if you haven't heard of it before, maybe you're just curious, my thoughts about it, and then also what we are going to be doing with our products. I have to admit, I have just downsized and got rid of over 800 products in my store. Honestly, this would have been such a big nightmare if we had to figure this out, but I would tell you exactly how I would figure it out with those 800 items and how we would go forward with it, and also how we're going forward with it with our limited item runs that we now do here at Katnipp. So if you don't know what this is, this might be quite a boring video for a lot of people who don't have a clue what I'm talking about. Basically, if we pull up the Royal Mail website, because I'm based in the UK, so I'm looking at my shipping providers here in the UK, but I do know people from all over the world are affected by this, so you'll have to look at your shipping provider and see what they say. But I'm just pulling up the Royal Mail website. On the 30th of July 2025, the United States government announced a new executive order which outlines significant changes to customs obligations and processes for goods being imported into the USA from the 29th of August 2025. So that was over a week ago now. We've been working intensively, including with the US authorities and international partners, to adapt to these changes, which will affect everyone who sends goods to the USA. So absolutely everyone. We are now providing postal delivery duties paid (PDDP) services, which meet the new requirement, which I'll go into in a little bit, because this is what we are going to use as a UK-based business to ship your goodies to the US. So basically what this means is if you ship goods to the USA, the following will apply after the 29th of August 2025. The duty-free threshold, which was originally $800, will be removed and replaced by tariff duties, which must be paid to the US Customs and Border Protection. So previous to this, you could send things into the US completely duty-free if it was under $800, which was great for artists or small business owners because you could send all sorts of stuff and you wouldn't have to pay any sort of duties. Now, I will just say this is very similar to what happened to us here in the UK when Brexit happened. We had to figure out how to do customs and tariffs and VAT across Europe. This is the problem with being a small business owner when you're shipping products. You have to figure this out, and sometimes it just takes like a week or two just to sit down, pause your shipping, get it all sorted, and then put it back up. It just means everyone's kind of scrambling to try and figure out how to change it and do the paperwork properly. For goods shipped via the International Postal System, customs duties will be calculated using the value of the items. So it'll be calculated using the value of the items. This is very important because a lot of people are thinking that their customers are going to get an $80 charge, which is a flat rate charge that they'll get if they don't pay the duties up front. The customer will only get that charge if the business owner hasn't paid the customs duties and tariffs. But I think a lot of people are getting confused and worried that the customers will order like a couple of stickers and pins, it'll arrive and they'll have to pay $80 tariff charge. But that is only the case if you don't pay the tariff up front, and you don't need to pay $80. I think this is where a lot of people are freaking out and getting confused and having to pause, and I'll go into a little bit how we're approaching it in a little bit. So let me finish reading this. So the custom duties will be calculated using the value of the items and the prevailing country-based tariff for the item, or the IEEPA. Where do they think of these names, honestly? Depending on the country of origin, the country of manufacturer, not shipping. This is important. You can basically go on the US website and it tells you all the different tariffs and custom fees. But for an example, my stickers, if I was still selling stickers that were manufactured and made here in the UK or in my studio, or anything handmade by me in the studio shipped to the US, I would have to pay 10% tariff fee on my item. If I've manufactured some stickers in my studio, I've manufactured them, I've boxed them up, they're worth £10 worth of stickers. That's the value of those items. Those items will have a 10% tariff charge on them, which means our customer will have to pay £1. That's 10% import fee. We will pay that using Royal Mail's PDDP system, but you obviously want to factor that into your price on your website or whatever for the US customers so that you're making that money back. That's for goods that are manufactured in the UK. However, some of our items, like our adorable little cute plushie toys, are manufactured in China. So this would mean they would incur, based on the IEEPA tariff, a charge of 30% of the value. So that means a plushie, let's say it's £10 just for the sake of it, that would mean the tariff charge would be £3, which is 30%. So the item would go up from £10 to £13. The thing that's freaking everyone out, me included when I first heard it, it sounds like you're gonna have to pay $80 on any item, but that is not the case. That is only if you don't collect these duties and pay these duties up front before shipping them to your customer. That's a flat rate fee. Bundle up all your customers' orders and you ship it off, and you don't pay the duties fee on the value of the item, so either 30%, 10% depending on the country of manufacturer, and you can find out what the tariffs are for those individual countries on the website. So say you might get something made in India, find out the tariff and apply that and pay it. But basically, if you don't do that, a flat standard fee of $80 will be slapped on that package and your customer will have to pay that customs fee. That's not going to happen if you figure out the duties beforehand. And then this is where the new PDDP system service to the USA is helpful for Royal Mail. So I'm going to read what Royal Mail has set up, and what I would suggest is, if you're based in Canada or anywhere else, look at your local post office and see what they're doing to offer the duties paid up front. For Royal Mail, for example, in the UK, because I know there's a lot of UK small business owners who watch these vlogs, Royal Mail has a new USA PDDP service, which will work in a similar way to our existing PDDP service to EU destinations. So this is what we already do if we ship to the EU. A lot of people turned their EU shipping off. I have to honestly say that we did see an effect, and we did lose some customers at first, which is what's so heartbreaking about this whole situation, which I'll go into. They will use the same product codes, and customers will be able to choose from tracked and signed and standard service options, just as they do now. We will simply add a 50p per parcel handling charge to cover the additional costs associated with providing clearance services into the USA. This will be invoiced as a handling fee in addition to postage costs. So that basically means you've incorporated the tariffs to your items. So basically that means you'll be paying 50p to Royal Mail to get them to do all this essentially and ship it out to the USA. That's not too bad, and it's understandable. Using our PDDP services to the USA, for postal imports to the USA, items will be assessed for duties using the country-specific tariffs. These are known as IEEPA tariffs. So you guys can go click on this and find out the rates for each one. Like I say, for us, if we were manufacturing stickers, we would be charging our customer a 10% tariff fee, but our other items that were manufactured in China, there's a 30% tariff fee added on top. Whether you purchase your postage online or at a post office, Royal Mail's PDDP service will calculate and collect the duties for your items so you don't have to. However, it's worth familiarising yourself with the country's tariffs, which could apply to the goods you send into. So that's really good news for us because it makes it a little bit more simple. But what you have to make sure as a small business owner, and what we have to make sure, is that we're obviously reaping those costs of those customs fees, because obviously a 30% charge and a 10% charge that we have to pay outright, our customer won't have to pay that when it arrives in the country unless you don't pay the duties, in which case they might get slapped with that $80 fine. So as long as you use this, your customer shouldn't get any nasty surprises. However, as a small business owner, you're going to have to make sure that you're not losing money when you do this and you're selling to the US customers. So let me tell you about how we are handling it. So basically what we're doing about this is we'll will be using this PDDP service. And how we've turned it on is on Shopify, there's actually a setting where they collect the duties at checkout from your customers. So we use Shopify for our small business, and there is a category called markets that you can set up. Dean has set this up to the US, and here you can click on collecting duties and import tax. Now, another good thing as well is you can actually display the tax either as an item, a line item at the end of checkout, or you can have it displayed as duties included in the price. We have it as shown as a line item at the end of checkout, so the US customers can see the tariff charges at the end. Then in the shipping section for each individual item, we need to find our HS code, which you can find online, and we have to put in the country of origin. Now, this will work out the taxes and it will charge our customers at the end if they're based in the US and the shipping is going to the US. So this is much easier, but it is easier said than done when you have over 800 products, which is what we used to have in the store. Luckily, we have only got a couple now as we're doing limited items, but I can see how much of a pain this would be if you had to set it all up from scratch. There's one thing I forgot to mention as well, and that is actually sending things on Etsy. So I used to just primarily have an Etsy store when I started out, and they haven't actually got the same option that Shopify has, which is a lot more handy. So the way that I would approach it, because at the minute we're using print on demand and digital downloads, which actually our print on demand stuff is shipped within the US, so we don't have to worry about that, luckily, at this time. But if this wasn't happening on Etsy, I would probably open a new shipping profile for the US specifically, and I'd build the US tariff percentage into my shipping price. Not the best way of doing it. I wish they had a different setting like Shopify, which is more accurate to what we're going to have to do. So for example, if my keychain was £20, shipping was £10, and the US tariff charge was 20%, for example, I'd build that into my US shipping profile. So instead of £10 shipping, it'd be £14. It's not the best. I hope they come up with a better solution for this, because it's not as accurate, because there isn't anything you can tick on Etsy to collect US duties. So the only workaround is to either factor in and increase your prices on Etsy, or create a US only shipping profile where it's kind of buffered into the cost of shipping. Not the best way of doing it, but that's the only thing that I would have done. I feel very, very lucky at the moment that I happen to have got rid of pretty much 900 individual items that we used to have in store right at this very moment that this happened. We literally closed the studio and we had 900 different items. So we would have had to, if I was still in the studio with those 900 items, I would have had to, or Dean would have had to. Yeah, Dean would have had to, not me, to be honest. But what we would have done is we would have spent probably a few days sitting down and sorting this all out. It is a pain, but sometimes you just gotta knuckle down, put all the customs codes in, and then once it's done, it's done. But it would just require maybe a couple of days to schedule, to sit down and really go through all your items and all your stock. It is a pain. I hate stuff like this. I'm a creative through and through, and I have to admit, red tape like this, paperwork like this, customs code like this used to drive me up the wall, because things are always changing and adapting, and that's the problem with small business owners. It's one hurdle after another hurdle after another hurdle. There's one thing, and it always feels like the odds are against you. Honestly, nothing is ever simple. I used to approach tasks like this where I'd be like, right, I really can't stand doing this sort of stuff, but if I want to keep building my business and I want to keep offering my American customers Katnipp products, then I need to just sit down and we need to figure this out. Obviously, if I was an individual, that's what I would do. I'd probably schedule 2 or 3 days to figure it all out. I'm very, very lucky that I work with my husband, and my husband is very, very good at that sort of stuff. So he like sits there and he would schedule the time. But I know a lot of you guys may be solopreneurs and doing it on your own, and that's how I started as well. And that's how I would have approached it at the time. It is an absolute ball ache, I'm not gonna lie. It is just one of those really annoying things, and I know a lot of you guys are creatives like me as well, and it's like, oh, another boring red tape thing in small business, but that is just the nature of it. It is not as big and as scary as people think it is. It's very, very similar to shipping to the EU. It just requires a little bit of brain power and sitting down and scheduling 2 days to block out, or even you could probably do it in a day, to block out that day, get yourself a nice coffee, light a candle, and go through it all so that you can keep shipping to the US. For me, it was never, ever, ever an option to turn off American shipping, and I know a lot of people did because maybe they didn't have the mental energy opportunity. Maybe the small business is perhaps a hobby and not a full-time job. For me with Katnipp, I'm wanting to scale Katnipp and grow Katnipp as a brand, and we also have been in business just short of 10 years now, and we have a lot. In fact, I think it's like over 45% of our customers are US based. If we had our studios with all our £800 products, that would have been the most devastating hit to our small business if we had to turn off American shipping. So it would actually be detrimental to our business if we did do that. We would see pretty much half of our revenue slashed. So I would have to figure this out and just sit down and figure it out. Not only that, because we've been growing Katnipp over the years, I've got American customers who've been with Katnipp for years and years and years, and have also collected Katnipp items, collected generation 1, generation 2, and now they want to collect like generation 3 plushies and more limited art runs and stuff. So to me, to not offer my American fans and customers of Katnipp the collectible items for the sake of a 10% or 30% tariff was simply out of the question. At the end of the day, I wanted to leave it up to the customer to still be able to purchase an item from us, knowing there may be a 10% or 30% fee, because that's how it works in the EU as well. But to have the option open to them is really important to me as a brand, just with how I want to grow Katnipp personally. However, you have to sit down and think, is this worth it for you? Is it worth it for you to sit down and do all your customs codes and tariffs and stuff like that in your shop? You have to think what you want with your small business and how you want to expand it. Or if you're from the UK, do you just want to stick with UK based customers? Or maybe your future growth isn't to expand in the US and you just want to stay in the UK, in which case turn that shipping off. It's not worth the headache if that's not what you personally want to do. Me personally though, I want Katnipp to reach worldwide audience. So this just means for us, we have to sit down and figure this out. I just think people were really worried as well because they thought that every single item like a sticker would incur an $80 charge, but that was only if you didn't pay the customs up front. That's like a flat rate fee if you haven't paid the customs. But really it's only 10% or 30%. Depending on the country of manufacture. So I hope that's a little bit more clear. It is a bit of a nightmare, I will admit, and I think I would really struggle with this with the 800 items, but it is one of those small business things that happen. Honestly, running a small business is not for the faint of heart, and I totally understand why people have turned off the shipping, why they figure it out, because they're really scared that they'll do something wrong or they'll get the customs wrong, but I don't think it's as big or as scary as it initially seemed at first, because it did just seem like, oh my gosh, everyone's going to pay $80 for a sticker. It is worth, if you want to expand and see where you want to take your business, it is worth just spending a weekend or like just spending a couple of days to sit down and figure it all out, read Royal Mail, look at the customs tariffs. I know it's a headache, it really is, but these things are essential and crucial if you want to keep going in small business, and this won't be the first, and it certainly won't be the last thing that suddenly pops up and sucker punches a small business. There's been all sorts we've had to navigate as a small business and a studio shipping products. This is the nature of small business, and sometimes I honestly think that it's the odds are in against your favour, because most people do not have the mental energy to sit down and do this, and it is honestly sometimes just a headache. It's a headache, but this is what small business is. It's about overcoming hurdles and adapting and trying to add it on, and I hope me explaining it to you a little bit has helped a little bit more. If it was me and I was a solopreneur again with my items, imagine in my small little studio, which is how I started, I would make myself a nice cup of tea, I'd put a candle on, I'd put some nice music on, and I'd sit and I'd go through it, and I'd schedule a few days, or maybe I would turn it off for a week, and I'd maybe spend 1 hour a day figuring it out for a week so that I could break it into chunks, and then by the end of the week I would have everything sorted and I could continue shipping to my US customers. Just think what you want to do and how you want to scale your brand and your business, and if you still want to offer shipping to the US, or simply if it's not worth it for you, turn it off. Let me know in the comments below what you guys are actually doing about this as well. It would be great to open a chat and talk to people below, other small business owners who are going through this same sort of struggle. If you have any tips or there's anything that I've missed out in this video, please let me know in the comments below, because that'd be really, really helpful. Or even if I've got any information wrong as well, please let me know below as well, and we can chat together. But this is what we've personally done so far, and this is what we know so far. I hope this video helps in some way. We have had a lot of messages about it, to be honest, asking us what we're going to do about it, so I thought I'd just do a video. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one, which will be a vlog. I was meant to have the vlog up today, but to be honest, I am not finished editing it. I'll see you in the next one, when it'll be a vlog about us the week after closing our studio. Thanks so much for watching. I love you.